Hey there, Chris with Unique Camping and Marine, a recent graduate from NRVTA RV Technical Training, so I'm certified through them. I also have a certification through NATE HVAC training, and I'm also certified with home appliance repair as well. So just giving a couple credentials before we get into this. We just recently removed the skirting from around the RV, and on purpose we did not winterize it because we kind of wanted to see if skirting could protect anything and what would break if it didn't. And sure enough, we had a couple of leaks, but we were definitely anticipating that. The first leak came from the shower as the water cracked and expanded in there and popped one of the fittings off. And that was a whole leak, and that has been since repaired because it's pretty difficult to record that one. But I also found a leak in the RV water pump. And so because of that, what we're going to be doing today is replacing and reinstalling the water pump, but we're also going to be disassembling it to just replace the parts versus fixing the whole thing. So that's what the video is going to be about today, and we'll get started after it. Before we get started, I wanted to point out a resource which we have for you called thelineofduty.com. I'm there every day engaging with customers and campers. So if you have any questions or would like to speak with me directly, join me at thelineofduty.com. So here are the tools which we're going to be using today in order to remove the pump from the RV and replace the housing for it. We're going to use a set of gloves just because it's really nice to not bash your knuckles on various things, a Sharpie in order to mark which wires go where, a set of needle nose pliers, which just makes it a whole lot easier to remove the spade terminals off of the pump, a Phillips head screwdriver, which will be used to unthread both the pump from the RV and then all of the screws off the face of the pump, and then a flashlight to see exactly what we're doing. All right, so here we are inside the RV, and we're going to show you exactly where the leak is coming from before we do any repairs on it. So in order to show where the leak is coming from, what we're going to do is just turn on the water pump, and you can hear it pumping. And if you follow me right over here, our water pump is located underneath the refrigerator. Now, that's not always the case. Sometimes they're inside the bathroom, other places. But you can see the water leaking out from inside of there. And there's a small crack, unfortunately it's kind of hard to see it since it's all black, right inside the pump housing. And that happened from when it got below freezing temperatures, it expanded and broke the pump housing. So what we're about to do is remove the pump and then to disassemble it to replace just the broken parts on it, because it's much cheaper to replace the parts versus the whole pump. But if you are replacing the pump, this will show you how to do that as well. All right, so we're going to start off by removing the hoses. I'm going to stick some paper towels inside of here because there's always residual water. Now, the very first thing before we got started on this is we turned off the pump, and we also disconnected it from shore power. So we're now without power to this unit or anything else inside the RV. So you just unthread one side, and it's always going to drip a little bit from both sides of the hose connection. So there we go. Get that out of the way. And then we'll do the other side as well. I move my paper towel over here. Once you've got the power off to the pump, it doesn't leak very much. So, and I guess it does leak a little bit more than I was anticipating. But always good to have your power off to it because you've got this control board which runs the HVAC. Whoa! That's under a lot more pressure than I was expecting. Oh no! So I've been replacing various water pumps in pretty much everything for most of my life, from cars to dishwashers, washing machines, even pools. And no matter how much you plan ahead, there's always going to be something which surprises you in the middle of a job. That was a lot more water than I was expecting. So, good to know. Let me clean this up a little bit and we'll get back after it. All right, after cleaning up after our minor flood here, what I'm going to do next is mark one of the wires. So I know since they're both red, I like to make sure I'm putting them back where they need to be. So I'm going to mark one in blue and then remove both of them off of there. And they can be a little bit of a pill to get out, especially with gloves on. So let me get those off. Everything's wet now because I flooded it. All right, so we've marked one of these, so we know exactly where that needs to go back onto there. And I'm using a set of needle nose pliers to remove each one of them and set them aside. This is for the pressure switch inside of the pump. So now that we've got those off of there, we're pretty much completely disconnected. The only thing left to do is to remove the 4 screws which hold it down to the bottom of the RV. Keeps it from rolling around. And there we go. All right, now we can pull the entire pump out of there. A little bit more drippies as well. And if you were replacing the pump, it would simply just need to go back into place. Now there is a wire connector on here, which we'll need to keep in mind when we replace the housing off of it, but I'm not going to cut it because there's really no need to. So now it's time to disassemble the pump and replace the broken piece. All right, so now that we've got the pump completely uninstalled from there, you can maybe see right in there is where the crack is, where it broke through with the ice buildup inside there. And then what we need to still do on this pump before we start removing the faceplate on there, because that's the actual cracked area, we're going to be replacing this piece and installing a new gasket with it as well, along with the whole screw assembly. It's very nice that it comes together on that. This is a 3 gallon per minute pump, by the way. So what we're going to start by doing is just removing the filter, and that's just on there by hand. So no real tools are needed to remove it. You just simply unthread it. They don't really thread them on there very strong. From there, what we're going to do is undo all of the screws which put the faceplate onto the back of the pump. And now, again, if you were just replacing the whole pump, you simply just reverse the process of which we put it in there, but we'll go through back step by step as far as installing it is concerned. But replacing this pump is about $110, and replacing the just the housing itself was only about $30. So it's a much cheaper way of doing things, and it doesn't take very much more time to swap out the actual pump face versus the whole pump in itself. So just unscrewing all of my screws right here. We don't need to really mess with any of these smaller ones because it comes with them on the new one. So there's really no need to get into that. So we'll keep going around it. Alrighty. Now we should just be able to lift this off of there. Get a little squirt more water. This is the gasket assembly on the inside of it. We're not going to be messing with any of that currently because we really don't need to. On the back side of it, though, you can see that there's a gasket inside this little ring right here. And we are going to be putting a new one into the new housing. So this is the old part. So we're going to just set this over to the side here and start by pulling off the little caps which it comes with for the new assembly. And I'm going to open up the bag real quick here to get the gasket out. And they lubricate them, which is a very good thing, but it makes it always sticky. Let's see here. Can it be drug up and out of there? Appears to be. So we've got the gasket here, and it's got a nice layer of, I guess it's some sort of thing like Vaseline on there. And what we'll do is we'll just pop it into the little channel here, making sure that it's flush all the way around, that there's no bumps or overhang from it into it, because we're going to be kind of smashing it, sandwiching it back inside of there. So then we can flip this around, gently press it into place. It should be flush all the way around the outside of it with no real big gaps or anything like that. And we're looking good right there. We'll open up our hardware, and what I'm going to do is there's a couple of screws in here which come with the lock washers, and I left all of these screws in the old one on purpose so we can mimic exactly where there are. So there's a lock on each of these four and not on the other ones. So it just is really helpful to show exactly where the lock washers go in proximity to the new pump versus the old one. And I always start by putting the lock washer pieces in first. Keeps you on track of what you're trying to do here. When I disassembled the first one, I really didn't do it in any specific order. It is important to, when you're putting the faceplate back on, to do it in a specific order though, because you want to have even pressure on the gasket as you are installing it. Putting the last of the lock washers on there. Now we will get to the other washer, the standard washer ones. There's not a lock washer on there. And what lock washers do is they keep the vibrations of the pump from backing screws out of there. It just holds them in place much better than only using the threads. There we are. And we'll start by going in a clockwise pattern as far as threading down the screws are concerned. These are machine thread screws, so you don't want to cross thread any of the screws. So it's very good to go against the thread initially until you feel a click, and that's the machined threads falling into the place of where they need to be. I'll see if I can demonstrate that a little better on this next screw. So it clicks in, and then you're free from needing to worry about cross-threading screws. And that's by going the opposite direction. So lefty-loosey before you go righty-tighty. All right, now we're going to start back up on the other side here, doing the same click and then thread method. And we'll go diagonal. Back up to the top. Now our final screw. And then I'm going to go back around and just snug everything down. Mimicking the same pattern which I had before. Okay, so we are all tightened down now. We just need to basically put everything else back together and reverse the uninstall. So we're going to start by putting on the water filter. Now this does have an arrow on it which shows which direction the water needs to flow in there. And the arrow is pointing this way, and they're also very nice about putting an arrow for flow on the other side of the pump, so you don't need to get confused by any of that. Because especially with plastic thread screws, you definitely don't want to cross thread them because they kind of eat themselves alive, which is no fun. So I back it up till I feel the click. Struggling. There it goes. There we go. It should be nice and free flowing as far as that's concerned. And you only want to go hand tight with this. You don't really want to over cinch it, and it does not matter which way the filter basket is sitting up on that. Since SureFlow was kind enough to include an additional wire, and we did not clip any of the other wires, I'm going to remove that one. Keep it for a later date because it's always good to have spare parts on you. Then we will connect the one which is not marked in blue to the bottom of the pump because I marked the fittings so we knew that where each of them go. It's just easier to not, if they're both red, it's pretty easy to get confused on that. And then all we need to do now is put it back into place, thread down our screws and connect our hoses, and then we'll check for leaks. I always wear gloves for everything. And line it up as best as possible with the screw holes in the floor. Kind of going by feel on this, unfortunately. Let's get in a different position here. All right. Trying to get everything lined up as best as possible before I thread anything down. Now for these ones, since there's already holes drilled in the ground, you should be able to feel it when it goes in, and that is currently not correct because it's lifting up the pump on one side rather than going into the pre-drilled hole. So let's not force anything. This can be kind of the most frustrating part of this, only because it's difficult to see where the screws are going down and you don't want to re-drill additional holes into the floor of your RV. I'm currently angling it up just a hair so I can see where the threads come down through the rubber grommet on the bottom of it. And then I can gently lift the pump up and align the screw head with the hole in the floor. Not quite there yet. Got all my hoses and such in the way. There we go. And now it's going in nice and easy. And I try to not tighten everything down super tight right away, so you have a little bit of maneuverability with the rest of the pump, so you can do that same thing to line it up with the hole. Again, we're trying not to add additional holes to our RV. Let's get this started a little bit here. Sometimes it helps to not have a glove on so you can kind of feel a little bit more. There we are. And I thread it down past the rubber grommet so I can see just the screw head. And then I can line it up, and in it goes. And it threads in really nice and easy. No real need to wrench on it at all. If you are needing to wrench on it, you're probably not lined up with the hole and you're drilling a new one into the ground, which is not ideal. I'm going to do the same for the back. Usually when you have two lined up side to side, the other back two go in much easier because it's already usually aligned. And sure enough, it is. And that's why I do the front ones first so you can see it a little bit better. And then the back ones are usually already lined up for you, which is really nice because they're a little bit more difficult to get at, especially this one with the water fill hose for the freshwater holding tank. All right, nice and snug there. Now I'm going to go back through and tighten down my first two screws because I left those a little bit loose so I could manipulate the pump if necessary. Good. All right. There we go. I'm going to adjust this just a hair. So I can keep, just want to make sure it's nice and tight. All right, and then we'll do our water inlet hose. Threads nice and easily on there. I don't ever use wrenches on these style fittings because you can break the plastic super easily and you don't want to over tighten things in general. Now let's do the one which sprayed all over us. Get it nice and snug in there. Again, no need to use a wrench on it because it can break things pretty darn easily. Then we will connect our marked blue to the front of the switch. And now it's time to plug it in and see if we've got any leaks. Let's turn on some stuff. All right, so we have just finished replacing the water pump, at least the housing on it, and reinstalled it back inside there. So let's turn on the pump and make sure that it's working and not leaking, which is the most important part for us currently. So it's turned on. You can see the little red light indicating that it's turned on. It had enough water pressure in the lines to not call for any water just yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run some cold water at the sink to get the pump on and humming. You can hear it humming inside there. And once I shut this off, it will keep running for a little bit until the water pressure sensor reaches its capacity. And as you can see, we have no leaks and everything is good to go. So that is a successful replacement of the pump housing without it being a full replacement of the pump. Again, it's a much more affordable way to do it, and it doesn't take much time at all. So thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.